So by domestic abuse, I mean physical, sexual, financial, emotional, and psychological abuse. They're the four main types of abuse. Really, those titles are quite sort of self-explanatory. Physical, there includes hitting, punching, kicking, spitting, throwing objects, use of weapons. And when I say weapons, you know, I don't mean the obvious type of weapons always, like a knife or a gun. You know, it can be throwing the remote control, that would be classed as a weapon, or a cup or a plate of hot food, something like that. Sexual abuse is, you know, it's going to be something that's really quite difficult for you guys to spot, in all honesty. But that includes sort of rape, forced pregnancies, revenge porn. Threats of revenge porn is going to become against the law when the new domestic abuse bill comes into force at some point, hopefully in the very near future. Forced pregnancy, refusal to use contraception, that kind of thing. Financial, this could be an area that you would spot a sign. So that's forced financial agreements, taking agreements out in someone else's name and asking them to sign for them, removing someone's access to bank accounts, taking their bank cards, that kind of thing. Emotional and psychological abuse, so name calling, using the children, trying to turn the children against the other parent, gaslighting. Within all types of abuse, you know, I'm talking about whether it happens digitally or technology. So stalking apps on phones, track and trace type apps that can be used, coercive control, which we are going to talk a little bit about shortly, because I think that is something where you may well spot signs as well. FGM is for female genital mutilation, forced marriage, honour-based violence, stalking and harassment. Stalking is one of the most high-risk activities that there is. 50% of stalkers carry out their threats, which is quite a huge percentage. You know, 1 in 2 stalkers, if they threaten to harm or kill someone, they will carry out that threat. And post-separation abuse, so abuse that happens even after someone has separated from their abusive partner. 4 things about domestic abuse. 1, it is hugely common. It is so common. 2.3 million adults in the UK suffer an incident of domestic abuse every year. I don't deny that there are males that suffer domestic abuse. There are males out there suffering domestic abuse, but it is still quite a gendered crime. 92.1 of defendants are male, and 83.3% of victims are female. It can happen to anyone. Just because your practice is in an affluent area, or it's a private practice, you know, it doesn't matter. It can happen to anyone, regardless of race, religion, finances, educational background. There are no safety buffers to domestic abuse, and most incidents are never reported, despite the fact that police receive an average of a call every 30 seconds. And as you can see there, 35 incidents is the norm before someone reports for the first time, and 1 in 5 women in refuge, even though they're in refuge, have still never actually reported the domestic abuse to police. Just some stats there as well for you. More than 1 in 4 women, 1 million women every year. It's actually about 1.6 million is the latest stat on that, and about 700,000 men experience domestic abuse each year. It's 2 women a week are killed by a current or former partner. that stat has been static for over 10 years. It hasn't gone up, it hasn't gone down, despite awareness raising, and you know, it stayed static. 1 in 7 males. This is another one as well. If you've got a patient that is pregnant or early pregnancy, it can begin in pregnancy. It's very common for domestic abuse to begin in pregnancy or to get worse during pregnancy. 1 in 4 LGBTQ experience domestic abuse. Disabled women are twice as likely to experience domestic abuse, and the sad fact there is that disabled women will actually live with it longer, and physical injuries will be more severe for disabled women who are impacted by domestic abuse. And the most common age group to suffer from domestic abuse is 16 to 25. And that's, I would say, fairly recent research, about 6 years, and it seems to be that group is remaining the highest at-risk group at the moment. So when it comes to your day jobs, spotting the signs of physical injuries, these are some of the signs that you may spot. So bruising to the face or the neck. I mean, the neck is one to really watch out for. Non-fatal strangulation is a very, very high risk factor in domestic abuse. If someone suffers regularly from non-fatal strangulation, they are 8 times more likely to die as a result of a domestic homicide. So bruising to the neck area is one to, or is it petechiae bruising? You know, not necessarily the purple bruising, but the burst blood vessel type bruising. Damaged or missing teeth, obviously, injuries to lips, fractures, injuries to ears, you know, ear pulling, because it can be covered by hair, is quite a large one to watch out for. Hair loss and bald patches from hair pulling, scratch marks, eye injuries, of course, and that general discomfort. Lots of perpetrators will purposely cause injuries where they can't be seen. So that general discomfort of bruised ribs, sprained wrists, you know, sore arms, they're all areas, you know, someone will twist an arm or twist a wrist, and it can cause discomfort, but not real signs of bruising or injury. If you do notice someone with a physical injury, be brave enough to ask, and listen carefully to the explanation. Does it feel right? Does that explanation feel as though it could be right? Coercive control, I mean, this is present in 99% of domestic abuse cases, so it's huge. It is the heart. Coercive control is the heart of all domestic abuse. And it can be one of the most difficult things to spot. So I've purposely tried to think of things here that might happen in your practice. You know, a lot of coercive control you're not going to be able to see. It's not going to manifest itself in the practice. But some things like the partner being accompanied to every single appointment, belittling or making jokes at someone's expense in front of others, and the person that the joke is about doesn't look amused, you know, looks hurt rather than thinks it's funny. Controlling finances, so you may see that that, for example, he always pays the bill, or he is the one that carries cash. Someone receiving constant calls whilst they're sat in the waiting room, or they're sat in the dentist chair. And when those calls are coming through, they look anxious. You know, they look, if they can't, particularly if they're in the chair and they can't answer the phone, that they become anxious and tense about not being able to get to the phone. Someone insisting or attempting to be in the examination room with the patient. Someone calling to constantly make or rearrange appointments on behalf of somebody else. Speaking for the patient, so at the reception desk or wherever, patient being asked a question and the partner answering that question instead, or actually correcting the patient about their own dental health. You know, the patient will say something and their partner will say, no, that's not right, you didn't do that, or you didn't, you know, so that dynamic. Stalking, so people waiting outside for them. I know that that's not something you might see, but you might, you know, if a patient, one of the pieces of advice we give to people who are being stalked is, if you see your perpetrator outside, go back into where you came, or you know, find a shop or a safe place. So if your patient has left and comes back in and says they're just waiting for someone to go, or something similar, that can be a sign of stalking, which, as I previously mentioned, is very high risk. Partners calling to check if their partner has an appointment at a certain time, or calling to say, are they there? I can't get through on their phone, I'm just checking that they've got there okay. Or, you know, the main piece of advice I can give you about this really is, do not dismiss your gut feeling. You know, your gut has a brain too, so listen to it and sort of don't dismiss it, and don't believe you're being paranoid or you're reading too much into it. It's far better to explore a little bit than miss the sign, really. So I know it's very difficult to ask someone straight out, are you experiencing domestic abuse? And I'm not saying that, you know, that you should just come out with that, but there are ways that you can manage an inquiry if you've got concerns. So you, at the moment, you guys legitimately can ask the patient to be alone in that examination room, whether, you know, you can say that that is company policy, or you can say that it's due to the number of bodies because of the pandemic. You can legitimately say that that person has to be in the examination room alone, because a lot of perpetrators won't want their partner to be alone with any kind of medical practitioner. If you take a social history, I'm not sure whether you do that as a matter of routine, but if you take any kind of social history, why not add the question on there? It is a matter of routine inquiry now for all NHS departments to ask that question, whether that be health visitors, midwives, A&E. I recently had a hospital stay last year. When I was admitted, I was asked the question outright, whether I was concerned about domestic abuse, did I feel safe at home, just as part of a routine inquiry. If you are concerned about someone, if you have spotted signs, you know, around the coercive control that I was just talking about, when you do get them on their own, just ask, is everything okay at home? No one, if everything is fine, no one is going to be offended. I certainly wasn't offended when I was asked in hospital last year. You know, it just seemed a routine question as part of all the other questions that you get asked. And someone who is experiencing domestic abuse will not be offended either. And even if they choose not to disclose at that certain point, they will remember you, and they will remember you asking. So when they are ready to leave, you will be one of the people that sticks in their minds because you asked the question. They will know, they will have a feeling that you understand it and that they can come to you for help. So, and like I was saying about injuries, if an explanation doesn't match an injury, if it doesn't seem right, ask the question, be direct. Professional curiosity, you know, have a dig around, and you know, weird and wonderful accidents happen all the time. I understand that, and that could well be an explanation. But be curious, and also be confident in expressing your concerns if you've got them. Say, I'm worried about you. I want to know that you're okay. You know, make sure you're sort of coming across as a make sure you're coming across as a concerned human being, and make someone feel comfortable, I think, is the key. Now, this safeguarding flowchart, I mean, if you get a reaction back, if you get a disclosure back, you can, of course, I'm going to go on and explain how you can find information to give to these people to get the support that they need. If you have a real safeguarding concern and you think that there is something very wrong that needs attention, whether the person involved consents or not, you know, as professionals, you do have a safeguarding duty. This flowchart is actually on your on the Public Health England site under that name at the bottom, Safeguarding in General Dental Practice, a toolkit for dental teams. So I found that there yesterday. So that's quite an easy to follow flowchart if you've got, you know, real concerns about the safety of somebody. That's handy to follow. So these are the safeguarding requirements that mean you have to make a report. I know, again, this all sounds, it can sound a little bit intimidating, but really you are not on your own making this decision. You are not the only person that this is going to fall to. As I go on to say, it's not your decision to take alone. There are people out there that you can speak to that can help you make the decision as to whether this needs to be escalated or whether it's just a case of offering some support in the way of a phone number or a website address or something like that. So if you have a safeguarding leader, I've seen from your website, the Dental UK dental website, that you are it's recommended you have a safeguarding lead. So I'm not sure if you all do, but if you do, speak to that safeguarding lead. Make use of services in your area. I know for a fact that if a dental nurse or a dentist or a dental receptionist rang us and said, I'm really worried about a client, I don't want to give you their name, but I'm concerned about this, we would welcome that call. We really would welcome that kind of proactiveness, and we would offer you all the advice that we could. And I know that you're all over the country, so, and I can send these slides, if anyone wants these slides, I can send them to Pam. That on there on the Women's Aid website, you will be able to go on there onto the directory, put in your locality and your local services, domestic abuse services in the area will come up. If you're worried about a child or an adult in general, please do call your local children's or adults social care. They again will welcome telephone calls. You don't have to name names. You can say, I'm ringing for a little bit of advice. This is what's happened. What do you advise? So you really are not alone when it comes to making these decisions about how to handle situations. One thing I would advise as well, if you do have concerns or you notice something odd and you don't feel that you need to escalate it or seek advice, please do document it on their notes. It might just be a one-off, you know, it could well just be a one-off, but if then they come back for another routine checkup or, you know, more treatment, and someone else notices something else, you know, all these jigsaw pieces can start to fit together. So you can make it easy, whether you've got concerns or whether someone discloses to you, you can make it much easier for people who visit your practice to access support if they need it. Posters in your waiting room are a huge thing. It just gives off the signal that this is a safe place. If you've got this type of poster in your waiting room, people impacted by domestic abuse will know that this is a safe place to disclose if and when the time comes. Posters with tear-off contact strips in the toilets, I certainly know that we give those out to anyone in our local area that contacts us. We, you know, we would send them on email, or people come and collect them to put in their toilets. I would think that you have services in your local area as well. If not, I'm fairly sure Women's Aid, Refuge and Safe Lives have them. Again, I've detailed their websites and things a little bit later. Leaflets in your waiting area. If you can get leaflets from your local service, again, we would provide leaflets. I would imagine that services in your local areas would be happy to provide leaflets too. Get to know your local services. We can be dead useful. You know, we like it when people ring us for advice, that people are kind of raising awareness of domestic abuse. So, you know, get to know who your local service is. Many of them, they're not just for women. I know that a lot of people sort of think these services are just for women, and they're not. We're certainly not. Ask for Annie is a current government initiative to let people know that they can be given details of local services if they ask for Annie within your building. So if they ask the receptionist could give them a card with the local support number on, or Women's Aid number, or that kind of thing. I think in the letter that you got, Pam sent me a copy. Did you get it from your president or?
The chief dental officer.
So that was it, sorry, the chief dental officer. I know at the end of that letter, I think there are links to some of the Ask for Annie posters, so they're really useful to have as well. And so apart from your local service, you will have access to these national organisations as well. So there are ones specifically for women. Southall Black Sisters, Carmen Ivana. Carmen Ivana a sort of very honour-based violence, forced marriage, FGM, as are Southall Black Sisters, really. Amazing charities. And although they are based, Carmen Ivana is based in Leeds, Southall Black Sisters obviously is Southall, but they do work and offer advice all over the country. They are the specific to men national organisations, so they're out there to help, and they are the organisations there that deal with both men and women. So there is a whole host of information out there if you wanted to find out more, or you wanted to direct a patient to a service. And that's it. I know it's a whistle stop.